the rise of privilege is always destabilizing. It always causes brittleness in the marketplace, brittleness in society, and usually, I'd like to suggest ends badly for the host. The host being the party that creates the platform upon which privilege uh, rises and spreads. Today, the privilege is connected with the state, the modern warfare and welfare state, the corporate, you might say corporate government or commercial government. And it is one that, as we suggest, allows for the offloading of risk, of financial risk, upon the public or upon the government, and an onloading, a gaining, you might say, a taking on of profit privately. So what you have in the short form of this grievous problem that afflicts us here in Chattanooga today is the privatization of profit and the socialization of risk. Okay, so that's the short way of describing modern commercial government and all of its hangers-on, all of its profiteers, which are using the free market system. You might say the system of contract and service and agreement, backed up by the courts, to make a private profit and to offload risk. Okay, so that would be a chiseler who runs a company, for example, that offers home care under Medicare. That system is rife with that kind of abuse. Someone who specializes in selling and providing a new brand of care, now that it's gotten approval by the government, right, by the good people. And suddenly you have a whole industry feeding patients to get that particular device. Again, often the care of the patient is not really what's in view, but the sale of the device or the service is in view. With our hired people, we can make a huge profit on getting this service out there, getting this this special wheelie making a wheelie making wheelchair, perhaps, get that out there and get people in it, and they'll get healthy that way, right? They'll be able to test their sense of balance and maybe even walk again if they use our wheelie flying wheelchair, which is paid for by Uncle Sam and taxpayers, or not, right? Taxpayers don't pay hardly anything anymore. Most of what is spent by the good people, with now $20 trillion in debt, is borrowed into existence. It's not real money paid for by taxpayers who have to earn their dollars, but it's money borrowed into existence in the debt monetization process out of the Federal Reserve System and the banking sector. Right, the banking sector controls the economy. The banking sector is the leading sector, as it always is when you have dishonest weights and measures allowed to reign in a country, and that would be the people who have who control the scales and who regulate the scales. They come out ahead, right, because they can make the money. We have that. I say that, and I immediately I think of fuel pumps where I get my ethanol-free gas. Right. This is David Tulis. I like to drink fluoride-free water, which I have the blessing of doing, living in North County, served by Northwest Utility District, the water company. And I like to put into my V6 engine of my very old minivan. I drive an old minivan, 2000 Honda Odyssey, 17 years old now, and I like to put ethanol-free gas in there. So I'm fluoride. If I can be fluoride-free, I will be. If I can be ethanol-free, I will be. And when I buy gas, there's always that seal there on the pump that says this pump has been inspected by the Division of Weights and Measures, or Weights and Standards, in the Department of Commerce, or it is a Tennessee agency that oversees that, and the name escapes me, but it's regulated. So they want to make sure that a gallon of gas is in fact a gallon of gas. If you pay for it a gallon, you're getting what you think you're paying for. Whatever the price may be is beside the point. Is that you are not deceived by the clicking meter there that says how much has gone into your tank from that hissing nozzle there on the side of your car. And the government will make a show of regulating weights like that. And so you think that, well, this is the standard for government as a whole, but that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. On the details, the good people in the details will make you think that they are minding the details, but they really are not. Think just for a second about the Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Board, which enforces the EPA enforced Clean Air Act against Hamilton Countyans for their benefit, right? Well, that agency, which adopts the USC, the U.S. Code in that part in its entirety, makes you think that the federal government would never dream of deliberately polluting the air, but it does. We just have to look at the reporting that I've been doing at Nooganomics.com on the whole sky striping phenomenon, which is a genuine environmental story. It's a genuine story. And no one in Chattanooga has covered it except me, David Tulis, your host. I've covered that in detail. I've not done research on sky striping, but I have read into the literature. And that's, people who say they've done research on something often just all they really want to say is that they've read something, okay, or they've read into something. That's all I've done on that and some of the basic literature. Some of it scientific, some of it science-related periodical, and online to determine that we are the object of a vast program to inject white stuff in the sky to weather, to alter the weather, to make the sky more reflective. That's part of the theory anyway, that if you have more white clouds above you, you are deflecting sunlight and thereby helping cool the planet. Since we have global warming is the current fad right now, and so we are serving that fad and part of the reporting on that by saying, well, we are involved in SRM, solar radiation management, enhancing. It's also called albedo enhancement, the process of injecting coal fly ash in the sky to make the planet more reflective. But those, just by the way, I'm not really planning on mentioning anything about this right now. That's the problem, right? If we have global warming, it's because of anthropogenic causes, right? Anthropogenic means caused by man. Man caused global warming. Well, this program that is a genuine program under military jurisdiction and thereby secret, all the parties involved in it, even the people who fixed the photocopier in the tanker office, sworn under penalty of criminal prosecution to say nothing about it. It's a secret program, and so we know things that are secrets can in fact be kept secret, and things that leak out are only speculative, right? That's in the conspiracy media that gets a hold of those things, and who can believe that? So we know things can be kept under wraps, under threat, duress, and bribery, and there not be general reporting in the columns of the august New York Times about sky striping or the real causes of 9/11. These things are verboten, and they simply don't make the mainstream media. And much of what you see elsewhere beyond that is there is some speculation involved, and reporting, you might say, from a distance and not based on open records requests or FOIA requests. I still have a FOIA request out, by the way, from I think it's a 2015, maybe now 2014. Demonstration over Chattanooga, 2 days of unbelievable visitations by jet aircraft depositing trail after trail after trail in a real weaving over Chattanooga, about 2 weeks apart, October, November of that year, and I still have not gotten my response back. And I think that the military part of the equation, I was told you may have to wait for a while before the military gets back on the approval of this request. And I'm still waiting, still waiting here. David Tulis, I'm a very patient man. I'm a slow investor. I believe in local economy and slow investment, and I argue that you should divest nationally and invest locally. And I wanted to get to a couple things that are touching on your rights. I'm trying to put together an argument, just in a way of suggestion to you, my listener, here at Nooga Radio, about the connection between police traffic stops and fluoride. Now, you say those are completely disparate topics, but they come together in the theme. If I could just say it's the theme of privilege. Privilege is what you have in a society on its last legs, and that in a nutshell, you could say that the elites have their private profits, the upper 5, the top 0.5% of our population in America. Things are going very well for those people. And that is because their earnings have catapulted way beyond stagnating wages for the remaining 95 or 98% of the people. That would be me and you. We're stagnating, but the elites are doing very well by design, right? The system is designed for privilege. And privilege is a legal status, and you can see how it works in for example, commercial government in Tennessee. Here now is how there is a deep state analysis even in state government, right? It does exist, and we can see that through the terminology that I like to use, and that's called commercial government, and that would be government control of business and government control of commerce, regardless of constitutional rights of the people to do certain things. The government has converted those things into it has pretended to ban them, A, and then B, it converts the use of that thing or the doing of that thing into a privilege. And Tennessee is one of the worst states. I think we're in the top 7 for evil claims by the state upon the marketplace through the privileging and licensing scheme, where many callings are pretended to be owned by the state for the pretended claim of public health, safety, and welfare, which is in most instances is just purely specious. And in travel, for example, one area where we have the killing Monday of Brian Allen by a Tennessee Highway Patrolman. This man was involving. He was not. Apparently, he'd done nothing wrong before the confrontation, but he was traveling freely without a tag on his car, which means obviously there's probable cause to stop this man. But Brian Allen did not know how to make a defense for traveling, and so there was a confrontation, and then the wielding of weapons by his part and on the part of the trooper. And guess who won that exchange? If there was an exchange, guess who fired the last shot? Well, the trooper did, not yet named. And the trooper is enforcing commercial government, as do police departments in Chattanooga. Mayor Andy Burke's men are enforcing statute in the town of Chattanooga, in the municipal corporation of Chattanooga. This is a problem legally in one respect that I'm not going to mention right now, but that is under City of Chattanooga versus Davis, City of Chattanooga versus Myers, 2 important cases that seem to be denying of that authority to operate a police department to enforce statute. Now, police departments by the high court's rulings seem to have authority in one area, and that would be process serving and peacekeeping, which again are not enforcement of statute. Enforcement of statute belongs to Neil Pinkston. Neil Pinkston has not asserted the rights of the state in this matter, and maybe you, my listener, should ask him about that and propose a remedy. But anyway, Neil Pinkston is not stopping the city of Chattanooga from enforcing statute, and so the trooper in Hickson made that stop on Highway 153 that took him up to Middle Valley, and then there was the gunplay. But getting back to privilege is when the state says we own this activity, we own the activity. And State versus Boer and other cases make the claim cryptically. It's cryptic, and there is a bit of there's a kind of oral shell game that the judges play in that case is an appellate level case. It's not the high court, but the mid-level appeals court. Early 2000s, and Boer was one of these free spirited range free range sort of all grass, no GMO kind of Americans, and insisted on his right to travel, and turned in his tags and turned in his registration and so on, and got into trouble for it. And the argument there that the court makes is, well, you have a right to travel but not by car. But again, it's a cryptic analysis, and it's very colorful. It's very artfully done by the judges in Tennessee. But the point that I'm trying to make is that all around in many areas, not just in travel, but in many other areas, the state says it's illegal to do something, but we'll sell it to you for a privilege. You have to beg us the permission to do something which is really of common right. And universally in Tennessee, there's not been a proper challenge to the way the system is run. And what has to happen is that there needs to be a challenge by some businessman who faces ruin in the process, right? It's a 4-year process of being ruined. And but then you get a high court ruling that says, okay, we've had the proper question asked of us, and we're going to answer it now, and we're going to end 80 or 120 years of abuse by the state of Tennessee. So there is a deep state, and it operates on privilege. Okay, the whole system of privileges. And so traffic stops are part of that privileged operation where you are a criminal presumed to be guilty. There's probable cause to stop you if you have a car without a tag on it. You're offending us, right? You're offending us. You cannot travel as a matter of constitutional right. The people don't own the roads. We do, and we own the use of these contraptions, cars and trucks. We've converted them into things called motor vehicles, which are subject to our regulations. That's how that works. There's an alienation process, right? It's always about alienation. You are an alien and a stranger, and you have to ask us for permission to do something, right? Ask us, the state. So the state, there's government, and then there's the state. The state is the larger force on this issue, making the claim against the public, against the free market, and all these actors who would be in the free market now have to come to the state begging permission. Okay, that's the privileged economy. Those kinds of economies don't last. They don't last because they are inefficient, and they slow and retard economic growth. They are retardants, right? They suppress the free market. They deprive the free market of the oxygen with which to breathe, and bring in new people, right? The marketplace needs new blood, and it's dying because very few people are starting businesses. Small business creation is continuing to go down. It's been going down for several years now. And the fact that we have a privileged economy where privilege reigns, where people are discriminated against by policy and prevented from entering, that is the privileged economy. So in those, and the idea of traffic stops is that we're enforcing commerce, right? This is simply a commercial claim, a claim upon an activity. And though the state, as I point out, the state does have authority to regulate traffic and transportation because it's making a profit on the people's property, which is the road. There's a reason for taxation of that activity if it's for profit. But you my listener, you're not involved in being a carrier for hire, so you should be able to freely to use the road without having to ask permission, without having to pay a tax for it, other than gas taxes, which are use taxes, use levies. So I hope I'm not losing you, but let me just try to make the point. Chop the head off here, right? The guillotine's coming out. Let me actually chop the head off. Here on the David Tulis show, where we argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. Fluoride is in this mix as well. Fluoride comes from at Hickson Utility District. It comes from legacy ideas that we're going to have our water system buy industrial waste. Industrial waste, as Hickson Utility District is telling us on its own report, right? This is a report from HUD. This fluoride is a discharge from fertilizer and aluminum factories. That's where it comes from. And Greg Butler's put that on the website as an admission. It's an admission that helps make the case against fluoride. Well, the privileged society says we have mass medication of fluoride for children. Children who are young, who are preschool, maybe ages 3 to 4 to 6 or 7. For their benefit, for the pre-10 crowd, we are going to mass medicate our product. And we're doing it voluntarily, and we're confident that we're not liable for our actions. And we're going to mass medicate people who are in their 90s, right? People over at Hickson Home Health, or Hickson Life Care of Hickson, where my mother spent a month after she fell and broke her hip. All those old people they're going to drink our water, and we're going to medicate them. We're going to medicate people in their 80s, medicate people in their 60s, medicate people in their their 70s, the 60s, and their 50s, medicate people in their 40s, in their 30s, in their 20s, and in their teens. We're going to medicate them. And we can do that because we believe in this argument made by the fluoride industry and certain scientist groups, dental groups, who have made the most wonderful and amazing arguments here. Local dentists have made, as we've reported at Nooganomics.com, just the most amazing arguments. One dentist you can find out his name on Nooganomics.com, and I won't name him here, but he said that if we have to consider the whole picture. He said we have to consider that if we don't fluoridate the water, that certain parents are going to have to go to Walgreens. He didn't quite use these words, but he said they will have to go out and buy fluoride. They'll have to put fluoride themselves into their children's water. They'll have to buy fluoride washes. They'll have to buy fluoridated toothpaste. And even they'll have to go out of their way to buy fluoridated water. We can't impose, we who have a view of the whole, here at Hickson Utility District. We can't impose that duty on those few people. That just can't be. We've got to fluoridate the water for everybody so that they don't have to go to Walgreens. That's effectively what the local dentist said in defense of fluoride in Hickson Utility District. This is the privileged society. We do what we want. We are in charge. We discriminate.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio.